We are moving on to our next session, which is a movie screening. The movie is titled White Robes and Saffron Dreams, and it's been directed by Ms. Tina Amrit Gill. I would like to invite Mr. Uday Sahai, author, chairman, and director of SAUV Communications, New Delhi, to moderate the session and take it over from here.
A Buddhist nation. Just another day at work for women and men. And just another day at work for the monks. All seems tranquil and orderly in this world. On the middle path. But much is unseen. For many, the doors to the citadel are firmly closed. In Thailand, it is the traditional duty of sons to ordain and join the monkhood, so they can give their parents better karma. For at least a few months in his life, every Thai boy is ordained, even the king. But those from poorer families often stay on as monks for several years. In the shade of the Sangha, they find food and shelter and are provided with an education.
My credential for this, I would like to present so that you can understand the connect. Well, I did work on Bodh Gaya for nearly 2 years, and the book now is the official uh, gift that you are given when you go to Bodh Gaya. And the BTMC, Bodh Gaya Temple Management Committee, which has members from 21 or 22 countries, Buddhist countries, put together, they organize and they, are official upkeepers of the temple, especially in Bodh Gaya. So they were the ones who commissioned us, and finally it came out. And when you go there, you get that book as a gift. Whether you are President of India or you are small little VIP or no VIP, they give you that. The book picked up, and then they realized that Bodh Gaya is a kind of smaller circle in the larger circle of a civilizational point called Gaya. And Gaya has a history which is almost 10 generations older than Bodh Gaya. And it was quite intriguing for them that we have a book on Bodh Gaya, but we don't have a book on Gaya. Though there are many books, but they wanted to have uh, their own book on Gaya. So they commissioned us again, and we did the second book on Gaya. So perhaps these two books have uh, given the reason to Mr. Sanjay, our friend, to put me here in this role. Just to contextualize so that you have a. Well, I've seen the film carefully twice, and I introspected uh, after having seen that. It is evident that the film will be screened in a short while. The film is on, the backdrop is Thailand and the Buddhist society in Thailand, especially the through the film they are trying to position and document the status of a woman in Thai Buddhist society. Having said that, the book also gives you an insight about the uh, the gender discrimination, which consciously or otherwise uh, reflects the kind of gender relationships that exist in Thailand today, and it doesn't directly show that, but it also gives you a hint about a similar gender relations that you see in other Buddhist countries. And though the ideals of Buddhism do not really discriminate between the two genders, male and female, but the existential reality across these countries, you will find that it exists. That's the understanding. But while doing the book that I did, a very interesting uh, reference came to me that normally people thought that Buddha was not very open minded on gender equality. This was the understanding even then. And if you look at the uh, four great women who came in Buddha's life, Buddha's Mausi, mother died, as you know, in Lumbini, but Mausi, of course, actually brought him up in a way. His wife, then the third character Sujata, and the fourth Amrapali. Out of the four, three actually were they struggled hard to get into the Sangha. And for quite some time, Buddha was successful in keeping them out, keeping them off. And an impression gained ground, therefore, that in tune with these, practices of the day, thoughts of the day, Buddha also thinks that women are not as capable of attaining enlightenment, and therefore he has found ways and means to keep them out. You'll find that out of the four that I mentioned to you, three of them, Buddha's Mausi, Buddha's wife, and Amrapali, finally succeeded in course of time in becoming nuns, and they joined Sangha. But it happened in a kind of a very dramatic situation where when Buddha reached Vaishali, uh, as you all know, Amrapali was one of the most beautiful women of the day. So much so that the entire uh, band of these young princes would fall for her, and she was a Raj Nartaki, so to say, a kind of a royal dancer of of that area, of that kingdom. And interestingly, both father and son of who ruled Magad Empire, the Bimbisar and the Jatshatrus, both were trying to court her, and actually they were courting her simultaneously. That was the name and fame that she has, and that was the power of her beauty. So she was a little high-headed woman who had big ideas about her own beauty, and she thought, and she writes actually in one of her memoirs, she writes that I only met two types of men in my life. One who could not resist, and their infatuation for me or my beauty started oozing out. And the second set of people were so mesmerized that they couldn't even see her eye to eye. She writes that. But when she met, and so she's thought, when she heard of Buddha, she thought that he would be also one of the two types. But when she met him and she found him absolutely unfazed, she was a little startled. She had never visualized a situation like this. And Buddha was, so after a while, she gave up. And she tried her own tricks. She tried to seduce him. She tried to bribe him. And finally, when she gave up, she confessed having done all that. So she has given the best of her gift, an orchard, which still exists in Vaishali. If you go to Vaishali today, and that orchard she donated to the Sangha. She donated another very beautiful pond that you see juxtaposed in the Vaishali site, Buddhist site today. That was also donated by Vaishali to Buddha. All these were bribes. And she writes finally that I gave up because he would not get affected whatsoever by these little allurements. Simultaneously, two of other ladies in Buddha's life, one was, of course, a Mausi, and the other was his own wife. They were pleading to him to take them in the Sangha. And Buddha would find excuses to wriggle out. Just trying to simplify so that the message gets across. So what they did, they mobilized about 100 other ladies of Kapila Vastu, and they walked all the way almost for 150 kilometers to reach Vaishali. When they reached Vaishali, they decided to meet first Ananda, the personal secretary to Buddha. And Ananda was a very professional in his own right, so he uh, accepted them with all respect, gave them a patient hearing, but said that look, as a policy, he has said that no woman would be allowed in the Sangha. But both of them kept, persuading Anand, and after a while he gave up. He said, I can try, but I'm not sure whether I'll succeed, but let me try it. So, Ananda goes to Buddha and he says that, look, this is a situation. They have walked all the way from there barefoot and they are not in a right state of physical condition because of a very arduous kind of a walk trek they have done for days and days together. So we should look at their request with sympathy and we should also revisit our policy on taking women in the Sangha. And to my mind, that was the first beautiful gender equality debate that you see in the Buddhist literature. And that exists, that you can find even today. Those who are working on researching on Buddhism, you must read this. The essence of the debate was that Buddha was not at all, never ever has uh, taken a position in the debate that look, women are inferior. His main concern was women's safety. His main concern was, and there's a very famous line, that enemies are, we are on the walk. Charvate, charvate is our mode of life, largely, except for a few seasons. So we are constantly walking. And while walking, we come across all kinds of people en route. The villagers are there, the people who are aspiring to join you are there, etc. etc. So, all kinds of good, bad, ugly, awkward people are coming and meeting us. So, I am not sure whether I'll be able to protect women if we take them under our fold. So, the women's safety was, and then he makes another very interesting observation. He says that look, enemies outside you can still tackle because you know who are outsiders. But how do you tackle the enemies within the Sangha? And this debate, therefore, you must read if you were to understand the concept of gender equality, originally conceptualized by Buddha himself. And this film becomes relevant from that point of view. And therefore, this impression that Buddha in his initial days was not in favor of gender equality because he didn't allow women to join the Sangha is erroneous. He yielded finally to the persuasion of Ananda. Ananda could clearly convince him that look, we must take them, otherwise it will be very unfair. A wrong message will go. So a truce was arrived between the two, and they said that let's develop a model code of conduct and let's have a different bathing space for them, toilets for them. Today we are talking about the present regime was also talking about having separate toilet for women in the villages, etc. For the first time ever in history, a man of that stature has talked about having separate bathing space for women and also toilet for women if they were to join the Sangha and so on. So it's a very detailed uh, code of conduct they built up. And I believe in spirit that conduct is still enforced across 23 nations that we know today. That's the blueprint kind. Now, if you look at this film closely, it's a little longish film, and I feel that it could have been a shorter. But anyway, that's the prerogative of the maker, and as an outsider, we have no business to comment on that. But in the film, you will realize that uh, it is clearly telling you that the life of woman in the Buddhist world called Thailand, whether you talk about the metro part of Thailand or you talk about the northern rural part of Thailand, they are not very different. Even if they have been given a little concession of to wear a white robe, they don't get the same status. Out of a detailed set of vows that a normal monk is supposed to undertake when he joins a sangha, here the women are only supposed to take 8 very simple ones, and they help in their domestic chores in running the temples and maintaining the temples, etc., etc. But they never get that uh, status. It cites an example of two princes who were little rebellion kind, and they declared that they have become monk or nun. When they declared, finally, I believe they were both were killed. So that's the kind of resistance. So she's trying to say that a highly discriminatory uh, gender climate you find even in a very egalitarian, seemingly egalitarian Buddhist society like Thailand. So the ideal may be egalitarian, but the reality is highly discriminatory. That's the observation of the maker, which is fair enough. But we need to realize that all societies, the ideal and the real do not really overlap. Even in India, while we were studying in D school, very famous, they used to say that the the debate is between Homo hierarchicus and Homo equalus. So, Homo equalus is something which is ideal, and Homo hierarchicus is something which actually exists on the ground. So, there's nothing very new what you see in the film in terms of societal real situations. Even in India, go to Bodh Gaya because we are a part of this Bodh Gaya dialogue. It's very interesting that I, during my research, did not come across a single a woman monk as a part of BTMC, which is the official body of setting standards for Buddhist temples upkeep in India. This is India, and despite practices which are highly discriminatory, at least the constitution tells you that they are all equal. On the top of that, you are in a setting called Buddhist setting, which is, as it is, quite open, and Buddha himself broke that by allowing the woman to join the sangha later, as I discussed in the small tale. Still, in India, I have seen that. In Nepal, I have seen that. I have seen that in Dhaka. So it may not be a kind of uh, an ideal situation, but it's a real situation. And to that extent, I must admire the maker, Tina Gill, who has kind of captured this. She starts with the journey of Bangkok. She takes you to the fields, the green fields of northern uh, Thailand thereafter. And in the process, she has tried to tell that, look, all said and done, it's everything is so great, yet there are some dark patches, and which the society aspires to, all of us should aspire to reach. So the film, 1 minute I'll take in explaining, because I noted down few points with the help of my son who was in FTI, and he's with me because of the corona. So he tells me, I showed him the film, and his observation was that cinematographically film is shot extremely well, and uh, he says that a cinematic flow is brilliant, that makes you really peek into the life characters of Thailand, whether urban area or rural area. And the sound design gives you a sense of presence with the character. And that's a very big compliment he gave about the film. So that credit goes to the maker. Uh, she raises the point that, and she expresses a wish that the number of uh, male monks are overwhelming. Number of bhikkhunis, bhikshus and bhikshunis, as you know, bhikkhunis are quite less, and even if they are there in white robes, their aspirations is to wear the saffron ones. White robes is something which is a intermediary position, where you take simpler vows, you do simpler duties, and you are given an inferior status compared to your male monks counterparts who are monks. So, a very thoughtful, I would say, uh, title she has picked up for the film. It says white clouds, white robes, and saffron dreams. So saffron symbolizes your aspiration, which is a monk attaining a full monkhood, and white is the reality today, where they are there yet not there. Even if they are part of the Buddhist temples, they are in an inferior position. Thank you, Sanjay ji, once again for this opportunity.